My name is Rosa Smith. I'm 30 years old, and I make a living uncovering lies. Not the obvious ones. Not the sloppy excuses people throw together when they think they've been caught. I specialize in the kind of lies people believe are gone forever. Deleted files, wiped drives, encrypted messages. I follow digital traces no one else notices, and I rebuild the truth piece by piece until there's nowhere left to hide. That's what I do every day. And somehow, I still missed the most obvious lie in my own life. It started on a Thursday night, at a crowded trivia bar downtown. I remember the noise first: glasses clinking, people shouting answers, the host dragging out questions like it was life or death. And then, I remember him. Ethan. He didn't approach me right away. He watched first. That's something I noticed later when I replayed everything in my head. How observant he was. How patient. After I answered a question about forensic detection, something most people would have skipped, he walked over, smiling like he'd just figured something out. "Okay," he said, leaning slightly against the table. "You don't just guess something that specific. What do you do?" I should have known right then. That question wasn't curiosity. It was interest. And interest, when it's too sharp, usually means someone is studying you. But that night, it felt flattering. We ended up talking for hours. About my job. About psychology. About why people lie even when they know they'll get caught. About true crime cases that never made sense. And he listened. Really listened. Not the kind of listening where someone just waits for their turn to talk, but the kind where you can feel them absorbing you. I hadn't felt that in a long time. So when he asked me if I wanted to grab coffee after, I said yes, without thinking. That was the beginning. And for a while, everything felt easy. Too easy. Ethan slid into my life like he'd always been there, cooking with me in my kitchen like he already knew where everything was, falling asleep next to me while some documentary played in the background, laughing at the same dry, dark jokes that usually made other people uncomfortable. He made me feel understood, seen, chosen. And when his lease ended about 6 months later, moving in together didn't feel like a risk. It felt like the next logical step. My apartment was bigger anyway. 2 bedrooms, 1 converted into my office, 3 monitors, high-end setup, everything I needed for work. I had stability, structure, a life that made sense. And I thought, he fit into it. At first, I didn't mind the changes, the extra shoes by the door, the way my kitchen slowly rearranged itself to match his habits, the plants he insisted we needed. Suddenly, every corner had something green in it. My space didn't feel like mine anymore, but it felt like ours. And I told myself, that's what love was. Making room, adjusting, letting someone else exist inside your world. What I didn't realize was that I wasn't just making room for Ethan. I was making room for 5 other women: Vanessa, Madison, Harper, Skylar, Kennedy. He called them his sisters. They weren't related. But the way he talked about them, the way he deferred to them, you'd think they had some kind of authority over his life. At first, I thought it was sweet. Loyalty like that? It's rare. Most people lose touch after college, drift apart, move on. But Ethan's group? They stayed close. Too close. They had weekly dinners, group chats that never stopped buzzing, inside jokes that no one else was allowed to understand. And slowly, I started noticing something that didn't sit right. Ethan didn't make decisions. Not really. He checked them. With them. What should we do this weekend? Let me ask the girls. Should we book that trip? I'll run it by them. Even small things. What should we have for dinner? I'll text them real quick. At first, I laughed. I told myself he just valued their opinions, that it meant he was thoughtful, careful. But over time, it started to feel like something else. Like he wasn't asking for advice. He was asking for permission. And the first time it truly hit me was when we planned our first trip together. I found the place. A quiet cabin near the coast. Nothing flashy. No Instagram-worthy nonsense. Just peace. Something real. Something that felt like us. I expected him to be excited. Instead, he scheduled a video call with all 5 of them, and for over an hour, he presented my plan like it needed approval. I sat on the couch, phone in my hand, pretending not to listen, while they dissected everything. The location feels kind of boring. Why not somewhere more aesthetic? That budget seems low effort for a romantic trip. Each comment landed like a small cut, not because of what they said, but because of what he didn't say. He didn't defend me, didn't laugh it off, didn't say, "Hey, I like it." He just listened, like their opinion mattered more than mine, more than his. That night, something shifted inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, uncomfortable awareness that I wasn't building a relationship with one person. I was being observed by a group, measured, compared, judged, and I didn't even know the rules. After that, I started noticing everything. The way they looked at me during dinners, the subtle glances they exchanged when I answered a question, the pauses before Ethan agreed with me, like he needed to calculate if it aligned with something unseen, and the questions. God, the questions. They weren't curious. They were strategic. "So, Rosa," Vanessa asked one night, smiling like she already knew the outcome, "where do you see yourself in 5 years?" It sounded normal, but it didn't feel normal. It felt like an evaluation. Another time, Madison leaned forward slightly, studying me. "Do you think you're more of a homebody, or someone who pushes their partner to grow socially?" I hesitated. "I think relationships should feel safe," I said carefully. "Not like you're constantly trying to be something else." They all exchanged a look. Subtle, quick, but I saw it. I always see it. In my job, micro-expressions matter. People reveal more in a second than they do in an hour, and in that second, I knew. I had just failed something. Ethan didn't say anything. He just sat there, quiet, watching. And that's when my instincts, the ones I trusted in every investigation, started whispering something I didn't want to hear. This wasn't normal. This wasn't healthy. This wasn't love. This was a system, a pattern, and I was inside it, without understanding it, yet. Because what I didn't know, what I couldn't see at the time, was that they weren't just forming opinions about me. They were building something, slowly, carefully, piece by piece, like a case file. And when it was finished, I wouldn't be part of the decision. I would be the conclusion. By the time everything fell apart, I already knew something was wrong. I just didn't realize how far it had gone. It was a Friday night. Ethan texted me earlier that afternoon. "Come by Vanessa's around 8. We'll head out together after." Normal. At least, that's what I thought. I remember standing outside her apartment building for a moment longer than usual. Something about the silence inside felt off. No music, no laughter, just quiet. I buzzed in anyway. The door was already unlocked, and the second I stepped inside, I knew. Something wasn't right. The living room was too organized, too still. All 5 of them were sitting in a semicircle. Vanessa stood near the TV, remote in her hand. Ethan sat in the center, not next to me, not even looking at me. Just sitting there, waiting. My stomach dropped. "What's going on?" I asked slowly. No one answered right away. Vanessa smiled. Not warmly, not kindly. The kind of smile someone gives when they already know how this ends. "We're glad you're here, Rosa," she said. "We think it's important you hear this." "Hear what?" Before I could respond, the screen behind her lit up. A PowerPoint slide. Clean. Professional. Deliberate. Title: Relationship Compatibility. Review: Rosa Smith. For a second, I genuinely thought it was a joke. A bad one. Something awkward they'd laugh about in 10 seconds. But no one laughed. Vanessa clicked to the next slide. And just like that, I wasn't a person anymore. I was a project. "We've spent the last few weeks analyzing patterns in your relationship," she said, pacing slightly like she'd practiced this. "And we've identified several areas of concern." My ears started ringing. I looked at Ethan, waiting for him to stop it, to say something, to laugh, to tell me this was insane. He didn't. He just sat there, letting it happen, slide after slide, like evidence in a trial. Emotional compatibility score. A chart, a number. Like my ability to love him could be quantified. Lifestyle misalignment. Criticizing my preference for staying in, for quiet nights, for choosing peace over performance. Social engagement deficiency. Apparently, not wanting to go out every weekend made me a problem. Then, the one that made my chest tighten. Communication concerns. Vanessa read it out loud. Rosa tends to prioritize deep, analytical conversations over light, engaging social dialogue. A pause, which can create emotional distance. I let out a small, disbelieving breath. So, thinking too much is a flaw now? No one answered. Vanessa just clicked to the next slide. Graphs, comparisons, metrics. They had compared me to some imaginary ideal partner standard. Scored me, rated me, like I was something being tested for release. And the worst part? I recognized the details, the private conversations, the things I had only told Ethan, every insecurity, every preference, every thought I trusted him with, was now bullet points on a screen. I felt something crack inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet fracture. "Ethan," I said, my voice steady in a way I didn't feel. "Did you help with this?" He finally looked at me, and for a split second, I saw it. Hesitation. Guilt. Then it was gone. "We just wanted to make sure this relationship is right," he said carefully. "We." That word again. Always we. Never I. I nodded slowly, processing, trying to understand how I had ended up here, standing in a room where my relationship was being dissected like a case file. And then Vanessa clicked to the final slide. She didn't speak this time. She didn't have to. Ethan stood up. My heart started pounding. Not from fear, from clarity. This was it. This was the moment everything would either make sense or completely fall apart. He looked at me, and his voice. It was calm, practiced, like he'd already said it before. "We've decided you're not my type, Rosa." Silence. Thick, heavy, unreal. Not "I've decided." Not "this isn't working." "We've decided." Like I was being removed from something, like a position, like a role. I stared at him, at all of them, and suddenly, everything clicked. Every moment he hesitated before agreeing with me. Every time he checked his phone before answering. Every conversation that felt slightly off. I wasn't his partner. I was a candidate, and I had just been rejected. For a few seconds, no one moved. They were watching me, waiting. For what? Tears? Begging? Anger? Something they could point to and say, "See? This is exactly what we meant." But instead, I felt calm. Strangely calm. Like stepping outside of something that had been suffocating me without realizing it. I looked at Ethan, then at the 5 women behind him, and I smiled. Not kindly. Not bitterly. Just clearly. "Thank you," I said softly. They looked confused. "For what?" Madison asked. "For clarifying something I should have understood a long time ago." I took a small step back, meeting Ethan's eyes one last time. "I thought I was dating you." A pause, then quieter. But apparently, I was dating all of you. No one spoke, and I didn't wait. I turned, walked toward the door, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel evaluated. I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. I just left. Behind me, I heard voices. Sharp, whispered, confused. But I didn't turn around, because something inside me already knew, whatever that was. It was never love, and I had just escaped it. The silence after I walked out that night felt louder than anything they could have said. I didn't cry. That's the part people always expect. The breakdown, the collapse, the moment where everything hits at once. But I didn't. I got in my car, closed the door, and just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, breathing, thinking. Because for the first time in months, everything made sense. All the confusion, all the tension I couldn't explain, all the moments where something felt off, but I convinced myself it was normal. It wasn't. It was control. And I had been slowly losing myself inside it. My phone started buzzing about 20 minutes later. Ethan. Of course. Then again. And again. Messages stacking on top of each other. Rosa, you can't just leave like that. We need to talk about this. You're being immature. I stared at the screen, almost impressed. He had just stood there and let 5 people tear me apart like a case study, and somehow I was the one behaving badly. I didn't reply. Instead, I did what I always do when things fall apart. I handled it. The next morning, I woke up early. Not because I had to, but because my brain was already moving. Step by step. Clean. Precise. I changed every password. Streaming services, accounts, shared apps, anything that connected him to my life. Gone. Then I called my landlord. Clarified everything. The lease was in my name. Always had been. Legally. He had nothing. That gave me a strange sense of calm. By the afternoon, I was boxing his things. Carefully. Neatly. Not out of kindness. Out of clarity. Because I wasn't going to give him anything to twist. No excuses. No drama. No loose ends. When my friend Maya came over later that day, she took one look at the boxes and exhaled slowly. He really let them do that to you? I sealed another box. No, I said quietly. He didn't let them. I paused, then looked up at her. He chose it. That was the difference. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. By Sunday evening, everything was ready. I texted him. Your belongings are packed. Pick a time. He responded immediately. Can we just talk first? No. A few seconds later, the girls were just trying to help me see things clearly. I stared at that message longer than I should have, then typed back. They didn't help you see anything. They told you what to see. He didn't reply after that. Tuesday evening, he showed up. Not alone. Vanessa was with him. Of course she was. They didn't even come upstairs. I had everything waiting in the lobby. Boxes lined up. Clean. Final. Ethan looked different. Less certain. Like something hadn't gone the way he expected. Rosa, he said, stepping closer. Can we just… No. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. He hesitated. Glanced at Vanessa, then back at me. I think we made a mistake, he said. I let them influence me too much. There it was. Not responsibility. Not ownership. Influence. Like he had no choice. Like he was just carried along. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. You didn't let them. You agreed with them. That's not… You stood there, I cut in, still calm, while they turned me into a checklist. You watched them reduce me to bullet points. And then you told me we had decided. His jaw tightened. I thought they were right. And that's exactly why this is over. Vanessa stepped forward then. She's trying to apologize, she said sharply. You could at least be mature about this. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel intimidated. I felt detached. With all due respect, I said evenly, this has nothing to do with you. Her expression flickered, just slightly. That's where you're wrong, she replied. No, I said. That's where you've always been wrong. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Ethan looked between us, lost, like someone who suddenly realized he wasn't in control of the situation anymore. I stepped back, creating distance. Physical. Emotional. Final. Take your things, I said, and don't come back. They loaded the boxes in silence. No last words. No dramatic ending. Just done. And honestly, that hurt less than I expected. Because the truth was, I had already left. Weeks passed, and slowly, the story started spreading. Because let's be honest, a PowerPoint breakup? That doesn't stay quiet. People talked, shared, reacted. Some laughed, some were horrified. But then something unexpected happened. Other people started reaching out. Women, men, people who had crossed paths with that same group. And the stories? They were all the same. Evaluation, control, pressure, isolation. They didn't support relationships. They managed them. Like projects. Like outcomes they could engineer. And suddenly, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was a pattern. A system. And Ethan. He was just another piece inside it. About 6 weeks later, I was at a bookstore. Alone. Back in my routine. Back in my life. That's when I heard a voice behind me. Rosa? I turned, and for a second I didn't recognize her. Dark hair, glasses, confident posture. I'm Daniel, he said, smiling slightly. We met at a cybersecurity conference last year. It clicked, vaguely, but something about him felt steady, grounded. I heard about what happened, he added carefully. The PowerPoint thing. I let out a small laugh. Yeah. Unfortunately, real. He shook his head. That's not normal. No, I said. It really isn't. There was a pause. Then he gestured toward the cafe. Coffee? No pressure, no performance. Just simple. We ended up talking for 3 hours. And the entire time, I kept waiting. For the shift. For the moment where I'd feel evaluated, measured, tested. It never came. With Daniel, there were no hidden criteria, no silent scoring system, no invisible audience. Just two people talking, laughing, existing. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to be anything other than myself. Months later, that feeling never changed. It grew, steady, real. And one night, standing under a sky full of stars, he looked at me and said something I'll never forget. I don't need anyone else's opinion to know I want you. No hesitation. No, we. Just him. Choosing. Me. And in that moment, I realized something simple. Something I should have seen from the beginning. Real love isn't voted on. It isn't analyzed. It isn't approved by a committee. It's chosen. By one person. And that is more than enough.